Mind over matter. Overcompensating. Overstatements. Crookedness related. The soul's churn in return. Mental overstimulation. One word. Riveting. It terrors my pilot. Streams that are promised to make seeking less. Welcome back, Poacher Journal Podcast. I am your host, Alex Murder, and hope everyone's doing well today. Nice bit of warmth in London, UK. But that's neither here nor there. We have a guest on today. Looking forward to our conversation. Talking behind the scenes just to arrange things. So has been positive. So looking forward to this. And just want to make sure I pronounce your name correctly. That's Gayo Motsem.
It's acceptable, but the G coming from the throat, so it's Gao Motsem. So, but Gao is acceptable.
Gao. Just wanted to get that right, you know? It's important that you get that.
That's true.
But welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I normally love to start with the greetings, and I do that in my native language. Yes, I've been trying to help you pronounce my name properly, which is how we say the G from the throat. It's yeah. But Dumelang. Yeah, Dumelang Lokai. That's the greetings in my native language. I come from Botswana. And what is the direct translation of that? Dumelang is agree. Lokai is where are you? Locate yourself. And I love to start with this because we are here in Poetry Journal. So my question to you, if you are listening today, is what are you agreeing to? Every time when you come into Poetry Journal, what is your intention? And where are you? Are you fully here to listen, or part of you is somewhere else? And the invite that I love to do is, may you show up today, not with what you know, but just a clean slate, and also allow yourself to tune in on your with your body and see how you feel in the sensations that are coming through. Because when you're talking about Poetry Journal and all that, it flows when you feel it. So when you allow yourself to connect more with the body, that's where the magic happens. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, in terms of what you just said, I pretty much like to facilitate for the most part. I just want people to just give people the floor to be their best self, to kind of share their best self for their experience, and perhaps lay gems that people can take things from and add to their journey to make them better on whatever they're doing with their life. And the art is pretty much for the same thing, just to, you know, have people think, to make them better in essence, you know. So that's pretty much where I go with it, you know. So the first thing I really was curious about is, could you tell my audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay. I am a freedom illuminator, embodiment queen. That is, I help people to break free from generational toxic relationship patterns, imprints, curses, so that they can connect to the higher self. When you're talking about creation, it comes from the highest part of ourselves, the inner intelligence, and also attract soul-aligned relationships and opportunities. And tap into that self-love and embody that confidence and crush it in the bedroom in 90 days or less. So in short, that's what I do.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, let me just share some poetry. This is Poetry Journal after all. And then we can go in more conversation about in more detail. So this is what I have to share today. It says, as Moses renders corrosive, talking to the world like an obsessive, got to tell the real like I'm not related, but their lives will hang like ancestors, telling of the crimes like a dentist, seeing through it with gritted teeth like the plaintiff. Just a short one, just a short quote. And now back to what we're speaking about. Human MRI, psychic surgeon.
Yeah.
Do you give me some detail why you use such descriptions for such for yourself?
Mm-hmm. That's the gift that actually, as you're talking about ancestors, as much as there is toxic relationship imprints, parents, and all that, there is also some golden gems that are there, so we get to go through all the discordant energies to find the gems. So the gift that I've inherited from my ancestors, being able to scan through the body and also do the surgery without opening up the body. I don't do it like the medical doctors do, but still I the same, but removing it without any opening or something like that. So that's who I am. That's what I do. When I connect with somebody, I get to know what is going on with the body, where the imprints are stored, emotional blocks, physical, mental, and then I take it out.
So non-invasive, pretty much like well, obviously not modern medicine, but pretty much like popping a pill, as opposed to going in to see what's happening, or to do actual manual labor within somebody's body, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. You mentioned toxic before. What would you define as the type of toxicity that you're speaking of?
Mm-hmm. Toxicity, it's a lot of things, but one thing that is popping into my mind right now is even the codependency, and again, even when I'm talking about the wounds, especially, that I often find like somehow one or the other, we all go through this. There are 4 wounds that I've identified, and that is the betrayal, abuse, abandonment, rejection. We can experience, or they manifest in different ways. For some, it's more in relationship where you experience this. For some, it's in friendship. For some, it's in our professional or business life where these things are playing out. And when you look at this, it's easier for you to just think that, oh, it's just maybe Alex, it's between me and you, and make it all about you. But on the other hand, when I move on and meet somebody, Sam or Ben, then I still encounter the same thing. It's just different names, but these patterns keep on repeating, or I move from one job to the other, and I still find someone who is playing a certain role that I observed, whether it's in my family or between my mother or father. Because we talk about even those father wounds and mother wounds, which comes from the need that we have, and we develop a lot of things, those people pleasing, the need for validation and all that. So these are the 4 wounds that basically I would say I focus on when I look at the ancestral generational patterns: the betrayal, abuse, abandonment, and rejection. And we may experience them, or they manifest in our life in different ways. So these are like at the core of this, it's these wounds, but then we experience that toxicity of wanting something from somebody, because we feel we are not enough. And as a woman, I would even mention some things about a woman. What a woman is what has already been described by the society, the culture, and all that. And especially when we're talking about the patriarchal wound, even there is that. And when I talk about patriarchal wound, as much as we can talk about how much it undervalues women, what we don't realize is it also has men. It made men powerless by telling men that you don't get to feel, you don't get to connect to emotions. And especially since this is more artistry, you cannot really tap into your inner genius and allow that to flow through you if you are closed emotionally. You understand? So patriarchal wound has shut off the man's heart, and it has shut off the woman's womb. Men, even when men, it's better when I look at the sexual energy part in the
Yeah.
sense of they are more sexually active, but it's more of an activity. What is missing is the sensuality, which is also, I would say, is the core, is the magic that comes with art. Whether you are cooking, whether you are drawing, whether it's poetry, there is just that thing that comes when you allow the sensuality to come through, which also get us back when we go deeper. It takes us back into that romance, that softness, that melts every one of us into the other, you know. So I don't know if I answered the question, but that's kind of like what is coming through.
You said it's quite a lot, but I would say the first thing you mentioned is emotion. But from my understanding, it's not necessarily disconnecting for a man with where emotions concerned. It's more controlling your emotions. Do you understand what I mean?
I would say when you talk about controlling your emotions,
Mm.
that's what, when I look at the emotional intelligence part, it's more, emotional intelligence is more taught in the sense of control your emotions. And I'm not surprised. I don't know if you are surprised about the like high functioning anxiety that people are struggling with lately. Is because of that. They don't know, most people do not know how to process their emotions, but they control them. That is suppressing and repressing the emotions. And even when people study the emotions, they study them not for them to relate with themselves, but more how can I learn what somebody is doing and manipulate them. It's still the emotional intelligence that is learned from the mind. But when you look at life happening the way it's happening, then people have an illusion of emotional resilience because they have not healed and integrated their emotions, those suppressed and repressed emotions, and people tend to vomit in other people, especially even when you're talking about leadership. I believe leadership must be embodied. That is, who am I being? And when we're talking about leadership, it's not about only being in the boardroom, it's about who am I being at all times, as a father, as a mother, as a sister. When I say I'm going to lead other people, how am I leading myself? Because I truly believe you can't lead anyone if you can't lead yourself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think we're veering into so many different things. It's hard to break down just one of it. But the other thing, but going back to you're talking about with the emotional um, uh, emotional um,
Intelligence?
intelligence. That's it. Emotional intelligence. But um, you also add something else to the fire where I was speaking pretty much about emotional control, not necessarily emotionally suppressing yourself. I think that's something else. Something else. And fair enough, you're talking about, you mentioned emotional intelligence. I think, of course, that plays a part because it helps if you have emotional intelligence to regulate your emotions to that degree. However, in essence, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to um, men and emotions, it's not necessarily a strong point. It's not necessarily to our advantage to embrace emotions to that degree that you're speaking of. How
Yeah.
on the other side, you have a woman that I think it would be to your advantage to kind of embrace emotions and speak from that lens more as opposed to not, because you have so much more, you're so much more in tune, and you have so much time to finally tune your emotions to that degree. So, and I would also add to a degree the where men development and women development is concerned is somewhat nuanced in a different way. So it's hard to say to speak in a general term to the degree that you're speaking of. In my opinion, to say that you can kind of come to that conclusion for man as well as for women to what you're speaking of. What would you say to that?
I'm not sure if I really understand what your question is here about. I'm trying to rephrase it, but I'm not sure if I really grasp what you're trying to say about when you say I'm in tune with emotions, and men and women are not really that connected at that level. Is that what you're saying?
I'm basically saying, I guess I just break it down. So I'm basically saying women are so much more they're so much more in tune with their emotions, and they've had time to finely tune their emotions because by nature you're emotional creatures. On the other hand, men are not, and it's somewhat of a different experience for us, especially where emotions are concerned. Now, I'm not talking about. I'm not saying blanket statements. Some men are very emotionally intelligent, but that's not necessarily the norm. I would argue that's not necessarily the norm. Most men. What would you say?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm speaking to when I say patriarchy has made men powerless by shutting off their hearts, and women powerless by shutting off their wombs.
One other thing, could you explain that a little bit so people know exactly what you're speaking about?
Yeah, I'm gonna go there because that's exactly what you're saying. When you say men are not emotional creatures and women are, and is that who men are in nature? No. It's what for many generations men have been indoctrinated and programmed to believe they are not. So they don't know how to feel like, because for many generations, a man who feels his emotion is perceived as weak. But then when it comes other things that happens in life, either they suppress all of that and then it manifests in disease, illnesses and all that, heart attacks, strokes and all that. That is a sign that we all have emotions.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I'll give an example. When I look at sports and all that, like men, it's a space where men are like they gave themselves permission there to feel and all sorts of things, and you find that they express different kind of emotions when it comes to sports. So it's not like men are not emotional creatures, they are, but for many generations they have been conditioned to believe they are not, or it's a sign of weakness. So they get, and this is why when I talk about the wound or even something that makes them powerless, is the fact that they deny who they are naturally, and they suppress all this, they repress all this, and then when life happens, that's why there's a lot of wounding, there's a lot of even suicide, there's a lot of even killing their partners, especially where love matters is concerned, because they don't know how to deal with that, they don't know how to process that. When we look at like corporate environments, we find situations where it's people they tiptoe around their bosses, and I'm using the word boss, and this is why when I look at the leadership where we are going, we are shifting from control to influence, and we are living this volatile world where change is here and we can't run away from it, and that needs somebody who is more connected to the emotions. And even when you are tuned in with the emotions, you are able to also read or be in tune with the environment and know what is needed. You are able to adapt easily. So the disconnection from the emotions, as much as the belief in the past was that it makes somebody a great leader and all that, it doesn't work, especially when we look at the relationship part. The reason why most people are struggling with relationship is because of the emotional disconnection. That relationship with their children, that is also a struggle, hence the father wound. You may have had, especially when we talk even about the absent father, often we talk about that and people will be like, oh, but my father was around and they were married with my mom and all that. But your father may have been around, but it was more like fear that he was leading from. Even as women or our mothers, they will use when someone.
Perhaps, please, could you explain the fear? You said it might be fear he's leading from. How would you come to that conclusion?
because that's how it is. When a child does something, often they're threatened by all time. And fathers, they're known to be often angry, and they're emotional, unavailable, emotionally distant. They're not connecting with their children at that level. And I come to this conclusion because it's something that I experienced by the relationship that I had with my father before he passed when I was 14. My life told me a story. When I connect with people and work with them, you can come through and tell and be all like, oh my, like everything was great and all that, but the inner child always comes through. And it's either the inner child is sitting there in a corner flipping scared, or there is a certain part of a little boy who was waiting somehow and hoping that they will connect with the father and something will happen. But the father was either not available, his father was busy with something, or it was always anger that was coming through. And it's showing up in many people's health. When I look at the body, what is showing up, when I go to the core, is the disconnection that happened with the inner child. And even when I look at many people who are either striving in business or in careers, at the core of it, is it what they really wanted to do? Or is it a part of them that only got compliments when they did something right, when they strived at school and they got that A+ or whatever, and then the father's gonna like, oh, you're doing good, my child, and all that. And then the drive is like, oh, for me to get my parents' attention is for me to work hard. So this high achiever mask is coming from the wound because they associate that with love. For me to get love, I have to work hard. And they use the same system even when it comes to relationship. It's kind of like the same thing of what do you call it? Hustle and grind and all that. But the body is not in alignment with that. Hence the disease. And many relationships not working out.
I mean, honestly, I hear what you're saying, and I respect it, and I want you to express, because I think this is what this platform is about. But I think we're coming from two different sides of the two different lens in terms of how we speak it, how we're looking at it. I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong, but in my opinion, the way where I'm coming from, and I suppose in a sense I am saying you're wrong, because factually, when you think about the facts and where I'm coming from, we're definitely not on the same side. You mentioned about, emotionally as a father. The only question I maybe just tweak that a little bit. What would you say? Would you say that's technically the father's role, his primary role, to be an emotionally? Because when you're thinking about tapping into emotion, I'm more thinking about nurturing, which is, for me personally, that's a primarily a mother's role in the child's life around that period. Do you get what I'm saying? So, it's kind of hard to I'm not saying that fathers don't necessarily tap into, showing affection here and there, but it's not primarily the father's role to do what you're explaining. And just going back as well, you mentioned about leadership, or even in what's the word, just because it's like a 9 to 5, just being in just like a certain industry, and you're leading, and you mentioned being in tune with emotions, etc. And I also see that as an issue, because the thing with emotions, so I guess you're coming from a place of emotion, and I'm coming from a place of logic. So in my opinion, the way I see things, you lead with logic. As a man, I would lead with logic. As a female, of course, you're saying emotions, and just the way I see it, especially as a leader, if you're leading with emotions, then that means you're somewhat inconsistent as a leader, because there are some days where emotion is going to be low, and some days where emotion is going to be absolutely erratic, mean up and down, left, right, center, whatever it is, and it changes constantly, because that's pretty much what the, that's how, a functional, fully in tune emotional person is prone to be at times. Whereas if you're somebody that leads with logic, it doesn't matter what your emotions are telling you. The facts are that you're, and this is why I go back to emotional control as opposed to emotionally suppressed person. So it's somewhat of a nuance, but it's hard to agree with what you're saying. But you have the floor, so perhaps you could shed a bit more light on that.
Yeah. I was just laughing when you mentioned the roles, because this is exactly what I wanna address when I talk about the whole conditioning, programming, and all those beliefs.
Yeah.
Because that's totally not right. It's the conditioning. We both can lead. And when I talk about the emotional processing and emotional intelligence embodiment, that is, I am what I am representing myself as. I am not showing up as something else, yet I'm feeling a different way. When I say something, I am the embodiment of it. I am not pretending because I want a certain thing, because the truth of it is not about what we're saying, it's about the energy that we are emitting at all times. And when I talk about processing the emotions, I'm not saying lead from emotions, I say lead from influence. And for you to lead from influence, you get to be balanced. When I look at the feminine and the masculine, you get to be balanced. The feminine and the masculine. That's a person who can lead, who is in touch with his empathetic side and all that, but still can weigh things, because no matter what decisions we're making, even though at times we can think, oh, I'm using logic, the decisions that we're making are coming from how we feel about things. So a person who balances emotions and logic is a person who possesses all the soft qualities and the logic qualities, the right brain and the left brain. So when all is balanced, you are able to lead. This is why I talk about even presence, because if you are controlling your emotions because of the whole belief of these are the roles that I get to do, even when it comes to home, you come in with an idea of roles, at work it's an idea of roles, you are not able to even connect to other people, because we live in a relational world. It doesn't matter what business you are in or what career you are in, it's a relational world. And the level that you are able to create connection, which starts with a connection with yourself. But if you don't have a connection with yourself, you're gonna go ahead living with an idea or creating a block because you want people to believe this is who you are. So you don't let people in. This is why the relationship side might struggle, So that's what I mean when I'm talking about being connected to emotions and being able to process your emotions. Because the whole thing of, as a leader, you don't get to feel your emotions. There is a time and place, but when you are processing your emotions, for me, when you process your emotions, that's when you are really in control of that, because it's not suppressed. When you are suppressing, this is why a lot of bosses, like in the past, there have been bosses who throw their anger everywhere, who were leading from fear, because by instilling fear, it's for them to want to be respected. It's a different situation from someone who has that respect for himself or for herself, and they are leading from, because even when talking about leading, it's knowing that there is accountability, responsibility, and knowing that it's you and other people who gets to do this together. And you don't even have to know everything, especially when you talk about change management and all that is happening with the change that is going on, But when you come with the role, this is my role, this is what I get to know and all that. It's an old leadership style of believing that you get to know everything, you get to have everything in control. You are afraid of even asking for help. When you're going through something, you don't give yourself time to connect with yourself, with how you feel, and to take some time to process whatever that you're going through. You are a human being, and it doesn't matter what position you are in. It doesn't matter whether you are a man or a woman. You get to connect with all of you. So I'm talking about the balance of the feminine and masculine inside within all of us, because we have that.
You the first thing you said was we can lead together. So so do you believe in more than one leader specifically?
We can lead together. Yeah, I believe, especially when I'm talking about when you are whole, when your partner is coming from wholeness and you are coming from wholeness, not the codependency. Because the codependency is where people are not healed, but it's kind of like, okay, fine, I'm gonna bring the security and finances and all that, and you're gonna provide the emotional. I'm gonna use the emotional availability for me to be able to sustain this relationship. That's you coming together from the lack, both of you. And it creates the codependency, which is unhealthy.
But I guess yes. I think what I'm saying is, so even though you're saying there's two leaders, primarily there's one making the decisions. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, when you look at it from the hierarchy, but even if you are the one who's making the decisions, but on the other hand, a great leader know that they are not doing this by themselves. They are engaging those who they are leading, because there is someone who has something that the leader may not have, unless it's like I said, the old leadership style where you want to think you know everything. But when you are a great leader, you engage and involve other people that you are leading with, especially when it comes to critical decisions that need to be made. You are not I know it all kind of leader.
Absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with your statement there, but that's a different statement as opposed to what we're speaking about. Specifically because we're talking about who makes the decision, who's the primary leader, not necessarily your second in command or anything of that nature. I'm talking about pretty much who's the president, who's the king, who's the one that when it's all said and done, the last decision is his.
That's so. You still taking me to the old leadership of the last decision is his. But for instance, when you're talking about the great king or queen, they have a partner, and there is something that this is why even when I look at the old setups, someone was given a higher position to lead when they have a wife. It was one of when you look at like the old ways of doing things, it was one of the necessity. You gotta have a wife for you to lead. That is, why was that? Because they needed someone who can
have a wife to lead. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when you look at the old ways of doing things in different positions that were offered, somebody get to have a wife for them to be given that leadership position. When you look at it, then generations how things are done.
Are you saying in a sense where this is a qualification for leadership?
Obviously, a man who has a partner, they bring it. He brings that balance.
Yeah.
But the whole domination, which is what I'm talking about, even about the patriarchal wounding and all that, it's someone who like my word is my word, my word is my command, and it hasn't worked. That's why there's so many wounded. There's so many wounds, when you look at humanity, even the earth itself, it's wounded in so many ways because of that. Because what has worked before has been taken down, and now it's kind of like, oh, men are better, or men are better leaders. And they actually, first thing is not even about the women. They disregard and devalue their own feminine side, which is those soft qualities, So they disregard that. And then it's also something that is played out externally with the partner that is in their life. Because whatever issues that you have, whether you are a woman having issues with a man, with men, or a man having issues with a woman, when we go within internally, the issue that we have is within your inner masculine and inner feminine. When they are not balanced, when there is the other part that you listen to than the other, then there's going to be that imbalance, and it's going to play out in your relationship.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess to an extent, even then, we are somewhat on a different side of the fence. But I think ultimately, what I'm speaking about is more the dominant side of a person when it comes to a man, as opposed and then on the other side, the dominant side when it comes to a woman. And not only that, but what works better for them, what allows them to thrive, in that space of whatever they connect to. And ultimately, what I'm saying is, as a man, being a masculine man, more primarily masculine, not necessarily leading with emotion, but actually leading with logic, but controlling your emotions. Emotional intelligence, that's a thing as well. But as a man, it's not necessarily at the forefront. In speaking about the majority, and then when you come from the other side as a female, as a woman, I think the best way is described is soft power. It's being in your feminine. It's being agreeable, being so many different things. Being agreeable, being all this intuitive, and being able to maternal. All these different things. Because at the end of the day, I think as much as you're saying women are so many different things, they have so many different assets when it comes to what they add to what they do their best. And I think we can't neglect that. Some of the things you mentioned, I think you have to be a bit tricky because they veer into that masculine type of situation. And from my understanding, women don't necessarily operate very well when they're in that masculine energy. But they actually don't thrive in their masculine. So it's very tricky to agree to that degree to what you're speaking about when it comes to the two. So I suppose we would have to agree to disagree in our how we come to this situation, to this conclusion about how we see things. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's all about having a conversation. And I appreciate you giving me some of your time and just allowing us to have this discussion, this breakdown on things. But I think what you're saying, I think it works great, works primarily for a woman.
That's not true. Actually, I want to add something. When you say women thrive better when they're in their feminine, I would say
we actually don't have much time left, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. But the floor is still yours. We can have another conversation like this. We can have another one. You come again soon, and we can speak more. I can tell you still have things to say.
Mind over matter, overcompensating, overstatements, crookedness related, the soul's churn in return, mental overstimulation, one word, riveting, it terrors my pilot. Streams that are promised to make